Hi, I'm State Senator Pat JEHLEN, and welcome to the Pat JEHLEN Report. This is my first show as a state senator, and it's produced here at WinCam in Winchester with the help of Jeff Dearman. We're going to be talking tonight about the cost of car insurance in Massachusetts, why it's so high, and what we can do about it. And we have a very distinguished panel here. Whip Saltmarsh is a former 14-year representative from Winchester, but more importantly for tonight, 40 years as the founder and owner of Whitmarsh Insurance Agency here. We have Peter Robertson, who is former general counsel for the insurance division and now represents the Massachusetts Council for Property Casualty Insurers. Is that right?
Pretty close.
And the Fairness for Good Drivers Coalition, which we will discuss that topic, that name. And Steve D'Amato is at the Center for Insurance Research and has been an advocate for consumers on insurance issues for 20 years. So we have a very distinguished panel, but we're going to start with a little cameo appearance by the chairman of the Insurance Committee, Senator Andrea Nuciforo.
Motorists in Massachusetts are paying too much for auto insurance. The rates here in Massachusetts are fifth highest in the country. The only states higher than rates here in Massachusetts are New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and the District of Columbia. Now, no one thinks that Massachusetts auto rates will ever look like the rates in North Dakota or in New Mexico. Those states are not nearly as urban. The weather is, in many cases, much better. In fact, some have said that you can drive at excessive speeds recklessly in New Mexico and not hurt anyone. And that is not true here in Massachusetts. It's the second most urbanized state in America. So we fully expect that we're going to have rates commensurate with those. However, we continue to pay too much. Much of the high rates in Massachusetts are driven by the high rate of bodily injury and personal and property damage claims. So to the extent we can, as has happened in Lawrence recently, drive down the number of bodily injury and property damage claims, we'll also be able to reduce premiums.
Well, welcome back. And now you know some of the reasons we have high insurance rates in Massachusetts, but we're not going to solve it by getting rid of all of our drivers or moving to Wyoming. So what can we do here in Massachusetts? I'm going to start by asking Peter. I think that this whole debate got started this year by a proposal called Fairness for Good Drivers that you're representing and that the governor put forward. Is that?
Well, we have some differences with the governor's proposal, but we have similar principles and goals, I think. So
and so who could be against Fairness for Good Drivers? What does that mean? And then we're going to find out who might be against it.
Well, we're just to be out front about it, we're a group of insurance company and insurance trade associations who believe our system itself is a cause of, in part, of very high rates here. Traditionally, Massachusetts is ranked in the top 5 or 6 of states with the highest insurance premiums. And we think a lot of that has to do with it's a system that is rife with fraud. We have the highest claim frequency in the country. We have a system dominated by gamesmanship, and we think that needs to be changed. We also have a system where too many drivers are paying too much in subsidies. And we think that whole system needs to be changed in order for the best drivers to be able to get lower rates.
Well, we would probably all agree that we don't want to have as much fraud in the system. Is that, do you all agree about that?
Yes.
Yes. And there are experiments in Lawrence where they have tried to crack down on people who stage accidents. But the other part is something that's more controversial that you said.
I think there is a lot of agreement as to how to attack fraud and lower costs, and there's a sense that there are a lot of issues that we could look at in terms of safety, eliminating accidents in the state, looking at intersections that are dangerous. There are a lot of ways to take costs out of the system, and I think there isn't a lot of controversy surrounding those issues. The controversy comes when you start talking about what you allow insurers to charge consumers, and as Mr. Robertson mentioned, the Fairness for Good Driver Coalition, which is a coalition of insurers. I got to give them credit for their name. It was a brilliant name. What they're proposing has nothing to do with Fairness for Good Drivers, but it certainly is a nice, catchy name. Massachusetts currently gives more weight to driving record than any state in the nation, and what the coalition is proposing is to allow insurers to give weight to factors such as one's occupation, one's education level, to whether you own a home, and what your credit score is. Those kinds of factors are ones that insurers traditionally like to be able to use in terms of rating. Massachusetts has a very pro-consumer set of rules that doesn't allow the insurance industry to use those kinds of rating factors. And that's primarily what I think is driving the insurance industry to try to get more flexibility in terms of rating. If they really want to give a break to good drivers, within the current system, there are lots of things you could do to give good drivers more breaks. And they're not proposing those things within the current system. They're proposing changing the whole system to allow these other discriminatory rating factors to be used.
I have to confess that my first bill that I testified on as a senator was my predecessor, Senator Charlie Shannon, had a bill to prohibit using credit scoring in setting auto insurance rates. I don't know if people know what credit scoring is, but you can get a bad credit score in a lot of ways, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your driving record.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't want to turn this into a debate on credit scoring, because you and the legislature can decide whether we can use credit scoring or not. And we can live with or without it. But let's be honest, that there is a high correlation between high credit scores and good driving records, and conversely with low credit scores and bad driving records. Those are the facts, and we disagree that those rating factors like credit scoring and age, gender, marital status are discriminatory.
I bet being married gives you a better driving record. Is that right?
That itself does not, and that's
no?
what the heart of the debate is a lot of the consumer groups don't understand what the causal relationship is. The fact is that there is strong evidence to show that some of these factors, and credit scoring is the most powerful predictor of whether somebody's going to have a claim.
But marital status is used by insurers throughout the nation as a rating factor, and they definitely do, if you're married, you'll get lower rates than if you're not married.
Well, that doesn't seem like a good plan, because that doesn't have anything to do with good driving.
No, but it is a reflection of the way in which you live your life. That you're more conservative, I think, when you're married, and you've got to watch out for your spouse, and I think that's a similar kind of analysis can be done with credit scores.
Senator, I just like to go on record that I've been in business, you mentioned 40 years. I'm a Republican. I was a delegate to the Republican convention 4 years ago when Governor Romney was nominated, but I am vehemently opposed to this bill. This bill is not a Republican or a Democratic bill. This gentleman said across from me, this is a consumer issue. And a lot of the talk that's been going around that the condition of the Massachusetts automobile insurance, we're on a crisis. There's no crisis in the Massachusetts automobile insurance. I think this is...
Aren't rates going down?
Yeah,
rates
are going down.
Just I'll continue that the rates for the 2006 have gone down almost 9%, and I haven't been in the business and I was also in the legislature when this was tried in 30 years ago, or 29 years ago. I was a member of the House. I was on the conference committee, which you know what that means, and we tried this, and within months we repealed it because it just opened up Pandora's box for the insurance industry.
What you tried was
competitive rating.
Competition model.
It is not the same that's
Okay.
been proposed or that we would support.
It's
totally.
Why doesn't he say why it's different, and then you say why it is?
It is vastly different, and there were significant mistakes made in 1977. I was there to help try to clean it up on behalf of the administration that did it in the first place. And I know you were in the legislature at the time, but everybody made mistakes. The principal ones have been reflected in the bill that's currently before the Financial Services Committee. There was no transition period. There were no caps on the increases or decreases. There are no overall caps. And in fact, the evidence shows, everybody seems to want to ignore this, that 600,000 people benefited with lower premiums than before competitive rating, and about 50,000 had higher premiums. Now, they were much higher, and they were for urban drivers, and they were for young male drivers. And that